But Kobe in the book in big letters says the Achilles injury was my personal Mount Everest. And then Kobe went on Facebook the day after. So tears his Achilles April 12th, day after April 13th, 2013. He writes this Facebook post that I think is so legendary. It is in the running for one of the greatest Facebook posts of all time. It's a little long, so bear with me, but I guarantee you it is worth every second of your time. Kobe writes, "This is such BS. All the training and sacrifice just flew out the window with one step that I've done millions of times. The frustration is unbearable. The anger is rage. Why the hell did this happen? Makes no damn sense. Now I'm supposed to come back from this and be the same player or better at 35? How in the world am I supposed to do that? I have no clue. Do I have the consistent will to overcome this thing? Maybe I should break out the rocking chair and reminisce on the career that was. Maybe this is how my book ends. Maybe Father Time has defeated me. Then again, maybe not. It's 3:30 a.m. My foot feels like dead weight. My head is spinning from the pain meds and I'm wide awake. Forgive my venting, but what's the purpose of social media if I won't bring it to you real? No image. Feels good to vent. Let it out. To feel as if this is the worst thing ever. Because after all, the venting, a real perspective sets in. There are far greater issues, challenges in the world than a torn Achilles. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, find the silver lining, and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and same conviction as ever. One day, the beginning of a new career journey will commence. Today is not that day. If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear. I've always loved that quote. That's Mamba Mentality. We don't quit. We don't cower. We don't run. We endure and conquer. I know it's a long post, but I'm Facebook venting, LOL. Maybe now I can actually get some sleep and be excited for surgery tomorrow. First step of a new challenge. Guess I will be Coach Vino the rest of the season. I have faith in my teammates. They will come through. Thank you for all your prayers and support. Much love. Always, Mamba out." What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Victory Degree Podcast. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. So if you are a regular listener of the podcast, you know I typically like to do interviews. Today, we are doing a solo pod. So it is just me and you today. No guest. And today we are going to feature the one, the only Kobe Bean Bryant. I don't know if this is going to be in the full frame, but this book, Kobe Bryant, The Mamba Mentality, How I Play, is one of my favorite books of all time. And I'm not just saying that for the purposes of this podcast or the fact that we're going to go through the mindset of Kobe today. It truly is so great. So basically, I'm going to go through and talk to you about the mind of Kobe Bryant, like I said, in his own words, and what really contributed to his greatness, why he was built so different from everyone else. I have my cup of coffee here. I'm working really hard not to spill it. So sit back and relax. I think this is going to be an enjoyable podcast episode. So without further ado, let's get right into it. This is Kobe talking about falling in love with basketball. Listen to this. Kobe said, "I remember when, as a kid, I got my first real basketball. I loved the feel of it in my hands. I was so enamored with the ball that I didn't actually want to bounce it or use it because I didn't want to ruin the pebbled leather grains or the perfect grooves. I didn't want to ruin the feel. I loved the sound of it too. The tap, tap, tap of when a ball bounces on the hardwood, the crispness and clarity, the predictability, the sound of life and light. Those are some of the elements that I loved about the ball, about the game. They were at the core and root of my process and craft. They were the reasons I went through all that I went through, put in all that I put in, dug as deep as I dug. It all came back to that special tap, tap, tap that I first grew infatuated with as a boy." Reading this paragraph about Kobe reminds me of a quote from Novak Djokovic. You know, this reporter asked him, like, why do you continue to play tennis? Like, what continues to drive you? And amongst other things, Djokovic said, "I can carry on playing at this level because I like hitting the tennis ball." And I think that quote is very much related to what Kobe was saying here. At the end of the day, he loved the feel of a basketball. He loved tapping it, right? He loved dribbling it. He loved how it felt in his hands. And I think from studying a lot of these great athletes, there certainly is a separation between let's say the Kobe's, the Djokovic's, the Michael Phelps, the Jordans, the LeBrons, the guys truly at the peak of their sport. I'd argue that all of those guys at the very basic level, at the very root of everything, lies a passion for the game, lies just a deep, deep love for the game that they play. And obviously, these guys are driven by a bunch of different things. They all have their own unique reasons for why they play, why they continue to practice as hard as they do and compete and all of those things. But I'd argue it's that passion, it's that love that drives them a lot. And it reminds me, I think Naval Ravikant, who is this entrepreneur, had this quote where he said, find something that looks like work to others, but feels like play to you. And very clearly from that quote from Kobe, you could tell that basketball felt like play to him. It felt like a game. It's something that he fell in love with from a very young age. And it's something that, that love continued to follow him throughout his illustrious NBA career. So I just really love that quote because I think it frames this passion and the love that Kobe had for basketball and how it took him to heights and places that I think he didn't even realize were possible. There's a part in here where Paul Gasol talks about Kobe Bryant. And one of my favorite things to do with Kobe is to listen to other athletes talk about him because, Kobe, in his own words, obviously very great. But then you get to hear a different perspective, how different athletes perceive them, how they perceive Kobe through their own lens and through their own understanding of the world. So listen to this from Paul Gasol. One of the qualities that has made Kobe so successful and always will is his attention to detail. He always used to tell us, if you want to be a better player, you have to prepare, and prepare some more. His dissection of the game was at another level. I'm a player who watches a lot of tape. I like to watch my opponent's latest game to see how they are playing at the point that I'm about to face them. But Kobe took it a few steps further than that. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were in Boston during the 2010 finals, and I got a text from him. He wanted me to come to his room to show me a few clips of how the Celtics were covering the pick and roll and how we should attack it for the next game. I know for a fact that degree of detail, both in preparation and study, was a key factor in us winning those championships and many of the successes that Kobe achieved individually. And it reminds me, MJ has this quote. So not a lot of people know this, but MJ actually wrote his own book. It's called Driven from Within, I believe. It's a fantastic read. You can find it on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description here. But MJ has a quote on preparation and about process. MJ said, it's the same process for doing anything, anywhere in life, no matter how big or small the stage. Whether it's running a corporation, taking a test in second grade, or taking a shot to win a game, at that moment, you are the sum total of all the work you have put in, nothing more and nothing less. If you are confident you have done everything possible to prepare yourself, then there is nothing to fear. Paul Gasol then continues on talking about Kobe Bryant's work ethic. Listen to this. In my entire career, I've never seen a player as dedicated to being the best. His determination is unparalleled. He unquestionably worked harder than anyone else I have ever played with. Kobe knew that to be the best, you need a different approach from everyone else. I remember a time when we got together as a team to have our annual dinner right before the playoffs. I was sitting next to him, and as we were getting ready to leave, he told me he was going to the gym to get a workout in. As much as I was very aware of the amount of extra time he put in outside of our regular work hours, it always shocked me how disciplined he could be even during a relaxed situation. When everyone else was thinking it was time for bed, his mind was telling him it's time to get ahead of the competition. Kevin Kelly, who is entrepreneur, fantastic entrepreneur. He wrote a fantastic book called Excellent Advice for Living. And in that book, he has a quote that says, if you repeated what you did today 365 more times, will you be where you want to be next year? I'll repeat it one more time. If you repeated what you did today 365 more times, will you be where you want to be next year? I don't think there's anyone in this world who was a truer representation of that quote than Kobe Bean Bryant. And you could tell from that quote from Paul Gasol, even on days where, maybe it's supposed to be a day off or, it's after a dinner, maybe it's late at night. Kobe still knew that he had to go practice. He still knew that he had to put in that, those daily deposits to become better because he realized that, listen, what I did today, if I repeated it 365 more times, where am I going to be in a year? And so I just love that perspective from Paul Gasol, and then this accompanying Kevin Kelly quote. The next part here is Phil Jackson talking about Kobe Bryant. And I love Phil's perspective. Phil obviously coached Kobe for a while, but again, talking to Kobe's insane work ethic, listen to this story. Phil said, I could go on listing records and accounts of his scoring prowess, but that was really a side note to Kobe's evolution as a player. My staff would meet at 8:30 a.m. at our facility before a practice game or game to prepare for the coming day. More often than not, by the time I pulled in, Kobe would already be parked in the car next to my designated spot taking a nap. He would be in the gym well before that, maybe by 6 a.m. to get his pre-practice workout done before anyone else showed up. That was the trademark of the final 10 years of his career. Kobe led by example for his teammates. They couldn't keep up, but they were always challenged by the example he set. All right, quick sip of coffee, and then we're getting right back to it. So again, that Phil Jackson quote talks about, the daily deposits, the daily habits that Kobe had. Now listen to this. Kobe said, from the beginning, I wanted to be the best. I had a constant craving, a yearning to improve and be the best. I never needed any external forces to motivate me. During my rookie year at first, some scouting reports said I wasn't tough. The first time I went to the basket in games, I'd get hit and the defense would think they had me. I'd come back the very next play and pick up an offensive foul just to send a message. I didn't need that extra push to be great, though. From day one, I wanted to dominate. My mindset was, I'm going to figure you out. Whether it was AI, Tracy, Vince, or if I were coming up today, LeBron, Russ, Steph, my goal was to figure you out. And to do that, to figure those puzzles out, I was willing to do way more than anyone else. That was the fun part for me. The fun part for Kobe was figuring out his competition, working harder than anyone else. I mean, truly one of one. There's this great story. So Ramona Shelburne wrote this amazing article for ESPN highlighting Wemby's offseason workouts with the monks. I think it's become pretty mainstream now. But in the story, there is this part where Ramona talks about Kobe Bryant. And I'm going to quote exactly from the article because I don't want to mess it up. Ramona said, Bryant used to do that too, he told him. One summer, Bryant had become obsessed with studying how great white sharks hunt and attack their prey. So it became Rob Pelinka's job, to find him the best place in the world to do that, which is apparently Guadalupe, an island 150 miles off the coast of Baja, Mexico, where you can go cage diving in the crystal clear waters. Bryant would later write in the Players Tribune in 2017 that his study of great whites helped him defend Allen Iverson. Kobe Bryant literally went to a small island off the coast of Mexico to study great white sharks so that he could learn how to better defend Allen Iverson. Not much else to say there. Staying on the topic of Kobe's insane work ethic, listen to this. I always felt like if I started my day early, I could train more each day. If I started at 11, I'd get in a few hours, rest for 4 hours, and then get back to the gym around 5 to 7. But if I started at 5 a.m. and went until 7, I could go again from 11 until 2 and 6 until 8. By starting earlier, I set myself up for an extra workout each day. Over the course of a summer, that's a lot of extra hours in the gym. Now, Kobe has one of the best definitions of greatness that I have ever come across. If you really want to be great at something, you have to truly care about it. If you want to be great in a particular area, you have to obsess over it. A lot of people say they want to be great, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices necessary to achieve greatness. They have other concerns, whether important or not, and they spread themselves out. That's totally fine. After all, greatness is not for everybody. What I'm saying is greatness isn't easy to achieve. It requires a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices. It requires a lot of tough choices. It requires your loved ones to sacrifice too. So you have to have an understanding circle of family and friends. People don't always understand just how much effort from how many people goes into one person chasing a dream to be great. There's a fine balance between obsessing about your craft and being there for your family. It's akin to walking a tightrope. Your legs are shaky and you're trying to find your center. Whenever you lean too far in one direction, you correct your course and end up over-leaning in the other direction. So you correct by leaning the other way again. That's the dance. You can't achieve greatness by walking a straight line. Respect to those who do achieve greatness and respect to those who are chasing that elusive feeling. Gannon Baker came on my podcast. If you're unfamiliar with Gannon Baker and his work, he is an NBA trainer. He has trained some of the best NBA players of all time, including Steph, KD. He worked with Kobe. And I asked him, what's your advice to someone who is trying to chase greatness? Like, there's plenty of, differing opinions on social media, whether it's, hey, you have to embrace the grind like Kobe Bryant did, Mamba Mentality, working 24/7. And then there's, advice and opinions out there which say, hey, you should have balance. You should, have things that can even out your lifestyle and you shouldn't be working 24/7. What's your advice to someone? Which one of those two paths have you seen work? And he said both. And he said, ultimately, the most important thing is do what suits you. Do what is best for you. Do what you feel comfortable with. For Kobe Bryant, that meant chasing greatness, and that meant embracing the Mamba mentality, and that meant working 24/7 and grinding and becoming just a killer, both, in the practice facility and also on the court during an NBA game. But he said there are plenty of examples of athletes out there who didn't practice to the extent that Kobe did, but still found plenty of success. So ultimately, you have to decide what's best for you and what you're willing to sacrifice or not. Based off Kobe's quote, right? Like he said it himself, like there is a lot of sacrifice. You may not be there for all of your friends' events. You may not be there for all of your family gatherings, but it just depends what level of success you want. So I thought that was great insight by Gannon after working with Kobe and Steph and KD and all these different guys, being like, hey, you have to figure out what your goals really are, what your dreams really are, and then figure out what you're willing to sacrifice. Figure out what that price is for success, and then understand and ask yourself, am I willing to pay that price or not? Kobe goes on and he says, I asked a ton of questions. I was curious. I wanted to improve, learn, and fill my head with the history of the game. No matter who I was with, a coach, Hall of Famer, teammate, and no matter the situation, game, practice, vacation, I would fire away with question after question. A lot of people appreciated my curiosity and passion. They appreciated that I wasn't just asking to ask. I was genuinely thirsty to hear their answers and glean new info. Some people, meanwhile, were less understanding and gracious. That was fine with me. My approach always was that I'd rather risk embarrassment now than be embarrassed later when I've won 0 titles. I'm going to repeat that last line again. My approach always was that I'd rather risk embarrassment now than be embarrassed later when I've won 0 titles. This quote reminds me of that one moment in I think it was the 2003 All-Star game with Kobe and MJ, and there's that one mic'd up moment. I think Kobe had just played defense on MJ or something like that. And Kobe goes up to MJ and he tells Michael, hey, you have to shoot it quicker than that. To which MJ responds, if you knew where I was going, why did you go for the fake? Kobe then said, after you fake the ball, where else are you going to go? And then MJ started pointing at Kobe's ribs and he was like, if this was a real game, a competitive game, I'd go right here. I'd go right for these ribs. But beyond it being funny and being an interaction between Kobe and MJ, like the story just proves the quote from Kobe, right? Like the fact that he was always asking questions, he was always wanting to learn, he was always wanting to improve himself. And just that last line, man, like I still can't get over that. My approach was always that I'd rather risk embarrassment now than be embarrassed later when I've won 0 titles. I mean, that's an all-timer by Kobe right there. So I don't know how many of you guys remember, I actually had forgotten this as well, but Kobe hurt his ankle pretty bad in game 2 of the 2000 NBA Finals. He missed game 3, and then he came back after that and was able to play through it in game 4. The Lakers obviously end up winning the 2000 NBA Finals, being the Pacers. But this is Kobe talking about the injury. He said, after that injury, I missed game 3, but managed, thanks to stimulation therapy, to play the rest of the series. This treatment involves wires that deliver low-level electrical current directly through your skin. It actually helps bring the pain down. But the ankle was so bad that, to be honest, I couldn't hoop much that summer. What I did do, though, was take up tap dancing. That's right, tap dancing. That was my worst sprain, but it certainly wasn't my first. I realized at that point that I needed to be proactive about strengthening my ankles. After researching the matter, it became apparent that tap dancing was going to be the best way to build up my ankle strength while simultaneously improving my foot speed and rhythm. So I hired an instructor and started going to the studio. I worked on it all of that summer and benefited for the rest of my career. Again, the fact that Kobe took up tap dancing to improve his ankle strength is something that I don't think a lot of athletes would even consider doing. I don't think athletes would even think of that, right? Like how many basketball players are like, you know what is great actually to strengthen your ankles? Tap dancing. But again, goes to show, and it ties back into Kobe's curiosity and his willingness to ask questions. Like I would love, listen, if Kobe was still around, I still can't believe that he was taken away from us. But if he was still around, I would have loved to ask him, how did you come up with the idea of tap dancing? If I were to guess, I'd say he probably asked a bunch of people and then ended up at that, solution, like tap dancing. He probably asked a bunch of people in his surrounding circle, whether that be trainers, perhaps even family members, like, hey, like what's something maybe, that many people wouldn't consider in this situation that could help me a ton with my ankle. And he eventually landed on tap dancing, and it helped him for the rest of his career. So again, ties into Kobe's insane curiosity and his willingness to ask questions, risk embarrassment now, then be embarrassed later when he's won 0 times. I still can't get over that line, if you can't tell. One of my favorite parts in the book is Kobe talking about what he's learned from other athletes. And I'll always remember, I forget what Super Bowl it was. It might have been the 2017 Super Bowl, but Tom Brady was being interviewed. You know how they do the Super Bowl availability? I promise this story makes sense. And a kid had asked him, like, hey, you are an inspiration. You are a role model to a bunch of kids today. Like, who is your role model? Like, who is your role model? Like, who do you look up to? Who is your inspiration? And I love that question because, like, it dug at something that I hadn't even considered. Really, it's like, yeah, who does Tom Brady look up to? Like, who did Kobe Bryant look up to? Who does LeBron James look up to? And Tom Brady answered in that interview. He said his dad, and went into the story of his relationship with his father, et cetera, et cetera. It was a beautiful answer, beautiful question by the kid. That kid is going to have a fantastic future in sports reporting or sports media if he decides to go that route. But how it ties into Kobe is, this is Kobe talking about Muhammad Ali and what he learned from Muhammad Ali. Kobe said, I learned a lot from studying and watching Muhammad. One of the main takeaways was that you have to work hard in the dark to shine in the light. Meaning, it takes a lot of work to be successful, and people will celebrate that success, will celebrate that flash and hype. Behind that hype, though, is dedication, focus, and seriousness, all of which outsiders will never see. If you stop being dedicated to the craft, the commercials and contracts will all fade away. All right, another sip of coffee, 1 second. Gotta tell you guys, coffee, one of the best things out there. I don't understand people that don't drink coffee. It is so good. Anyways, this podcast is not about coffee. This podcast is about Kobe. Kobe then talks about what he learned from Bill Russell. Kobe said, I knew there was a reason Bill Russell had more rings than fingers. Years ago, I picked up an autobiography of his and devoured it. There were a lot of valuable lessons in there. There's one anecdote Bill shared that stuck with me. He recounts how people always said he wasn't a good ball handler, just didn't know how to handle and shoot the ball. He said, sure, he could do all those things, but why would he lead the fast break when Bob Cousy was playing with him? Why would he shoot jumpers when Sam Jones was on his wing? The message was that if you want to win championships, you have to let people focus on what they do best while you focus on what you do best. For him, that was rebounding, running the floor, and blocking shots. Again, I love hearing Kobe's perspective and the athletes and the basketball players that he looked up to, and the things that he learned from them. It's so awesome. Like, and again, it's a perspective that I just really hadn't considered. Like, it never occurred to me to ask, like, who do the greatest athletes look up to? Like, so many people look up to them, but who do they look up to? So I just love hearing that perspective from Kobe. One of the wildest, arguably the wildest quotes in this entire book, and the one that I will never forget because I have told friends about it, I have told family members about it, I've made Instagram reels about it, like, I just continue bringing it up, is this one from Kobe right here. Kobe said, reading is fundamental. I made a point of reading the referee's handbook. One of the rules I gleaned from it was that each referee has a designated slot where he is supposed to be on the floor. If the ball, for instance, is in place W, referees X, Y, and Z each have an area on the court assigned to them. When they do that, it creates dead zones, areas on the floor where they can't see certain things. I learned where those zones were and I took advantage of them. I would get away with holds, travels, and all sorts of minor violations simply because I took the time to understand the officials' limitations. I think this ties in beautifully to the part where Kobe talks about tap dancing and how it helped his ankle and strengthened his ankle. And the reason I think it ties in with that so beautifully is because, again, it goes to show that Kobe was willing to do things and go to places that other NBA players simply weren't. And now I'm not saying that nobody ever in the history of the NBA, a player has never read the referee's handbook. But like it does show that Kobe was going to basically the limits of what he could read, of what he could understand, of the questions that he could ask. Reading the referee's handbook to understand where dead zones were for refs so that he could gain a small advantage mid-game, a little pull here, a little tug there, a little push, knowing that the referees wouldn't be able to see it. If there's one Kobe story that just basically describes Kobe in a nutshell, I think that would be the story. Just insane. This is Kobe talking about injuring his right index finger in the 2009-2010 season. For all of us NBA Kobe fans, I think we remember that. He had that famous splint on his finger that, people, there were reports at the time, like, how badly is this affecting Kobe? Can he shoot? When is it going to heal? All of those things. Like, I still remember those reports and people talking about it on SportsCenter and ESPN and all that fun stuff. But here is Kobe's perspective. Kobe said, after I injured my right index finger in the 09-10 season, I knew my usual method would no longer work. Up until then, I'd always shoot off my first two fingers. After I heard it, I had to start focusing on using my middle finger. The middle became my point of release, and I had to sort of let my index finger drift. Making that change took a couple of practices, not average practices though. Days flooded with mental and physical work. I had to mentally download the software that was the new form and then drill it in. I definitely got my 1,000 makes in on each of those days. People asked me if the change impacted my shot, if it made me a better or worse shooter. I can't answer that. I can say that there are times when my index finger just went numb, when it had no feeling in it at all. I can also say that was still good enough to win another championship. And that's the only thing that matters. I love Kobe. I can also say that was still good enough to win another championship, and that's the only thing that matters. Love it. So speaking of injuries, Kobe went through another major injury. I think we all know the Achilles tear that happened on April 12th, 2013. I'd actually forgotten that it happened so late in the season. But Kobe in the book in big letters says the Achilles injury was my personal Mount Everest. And then Kobe went on Facebook the day after. So tears his Achilles April 12th, day after April 13th, 2013. He writes this Facebook post that I think is so legendary. It is in the running for one of the greatest Facebook posts of all time. It's a little long, so bear with me, but I guarantee you it is worth every second of your time. Kobe writes, "This is such BS. All the training and sacrifice just flew out the window with one step that I've done millions of times. The frustration is unbearable. The anger is rage. Why the hell did this happen? Makes no damn sense. Now I'm supposed to come back from this and be the same player or better at 35? How in the world am I supposed to do that? I have no clue. Do I have the consistent will to overcome this thing? Maybe I should break out the rocking chair and reminisce on the career that was. Maybe this is how my book ends. Maybe Father Time has defeated me. Then again, maybe not. It's 3:30 a.m. My foot feels like dead weight. My head is spinning from the pain meds and I'm wide awake. Forgive my venting, but what's the purpose of social media if I won't bring it to you real? No image. Feels good to vent. Let it out. To feel as if this is the worst thing ever. Because after all, the venting, a real perspective sets in. There are far greater issues, challenges in the world than a torn Achilles. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, find the silver lining, and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and same conviction as ever. One day, the beginning of a new career journey will commence. Today is not that day. If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear. I've always loved that quote. That's Mamba mentality. We don't quit. We don't cower. We don't run. We endure and conquer. I know it's a long post, but I'm Facebook venting, LOL. Maybe now I can actually get some sleep and be excited for surgery tomorrow. First step of a new challenge. Guess I will be Coach Vino the rest of the season. I have faith in my teammates. They will come through. Thank you for all your prayers and support. Much love. Always, Mamba out. I mean, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, then I don't know what will. That's a day after tearing his Achilles. And what I love about this specific Facebook post is you can see him going through all of the emotions in real time. Like as you're reading the post, you're seeing him go from anger to defeat and then make a comeback and be like, you know what? That's not me. I'm not going to let this thing defeat me. And then he comes back with a sort of vengeance, and the Mamba mentality comes out towards the end. If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear. I've always loved that quote. That's Mamba mentality. We don't quit. We don't cower. We don't run. He's leading you through his own transformation from, again, like I said, defeat, from, hey, this might be the end of my career, to, you know what? No, fuck that. That's not me. That is not Mamba mentality. That's not how I'm going to ride out. Like I said, one of the greatest Facebook posts of all time. I just absolutely love it. Kobe then goes to talk about his image and basically the transformation that he had to go through with the media and with himself. Listen to this. When I was young, my mindset was image, image, image. I took that approach with the media. As I became more experienced, I realized no matter what, people are going to like you or not like you. So be authentic and let them like you or not for who you actually are. At that point, I started keeping all of my answers blunt and straightforward. I would mix in some humor and sarcasm too. I think fans and reporters came to appreciate that, came to appreciate the real me. This reminds me of a quote from Alex Hormozi, entrepreneur, creates content on the internet. He said, "You're going to die, and a few months later, no one will think about the risks you took or didn't take. What a waste to live your entire life to please people who will never think of you again or ever to begin with." And I think that's the thing that Kobe realized, and you heard it live in that quote. He was like, hey, like I used to care what people thought about me, and then I realized, hey, no matter what, people are going to like you or not like you. So be authentic, be yourself. Because at the end of the day, then those people will not like the real you. In a parallel universe, if you're not being authentic, then those people will not like this fake version of you. And at the end of the day, you are going to die, and people are not going to remember the risks you took or didn't take, like Hormozi said. So what a waste to live a life not true to yourself. Like, we're all going to die. You're going to die one day. I'm going to die one day. I might as well die knowing that I lived a life that was authentic to me, that was true to myself. I thoroughly enjoy reading about athletes, studying their journeys, their mindsets. It's what I try to do with my podcast. It's why I'm recording this video. This is authentically me. This is what I live for. Ever since I was a small kid, a young kid, I've been enamored with sports, with athletes. Grew up watching the Sacramento Kings, which was great in the early 2000s, has not been so great in the 25 years since then. But like Peja, Vlade Divac, Chris Webber, shout out to all my real ball knowers, Mike Bibby, like those, I used to look up to those guys. I would be in my backyard practicing on my basketball hoop, thinking in my head, imagining myself as Peja, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, put up a three, Mike Bibby, Chris Webber. And then, of course, as every little kid did, if you missed the shot to win the game, right, you restart the clock in your timer. Somehow, magically, 5 more seconds have been added on to the game clock. It's like 3, 2, 1, and then you miss it, and it's like, all right, 3, 2, 1, and you keep taking it until you make it. Like, that was me. And so I just love that quote from Kobe Bryant, because it reminds me, like, stay true to yourself, man. Like, one day you're not going to be on this planet Earth anymore, and you're going to regret not being the real you. You're going to, one day when you're 85 and on your deathbed, and when you look back on your life, you're going to be like, damn, I wish I lived a life that was authentic to me. Don't have that regret. Don't let it get to that point. Live a life that you want to live. This is Kobe talking about just his mindfulness and his meditation. Kobe was famous for how seriously he took mindset, how seriously he took meditation, that headspace, right? Making sure that he was in the right headspace before an NBA game. So listen to this. Kobe said, "I made every second of the national anthem count. During those precious moments, I'm hearing all the little sounds and the energy of the arena. I'm taking the opportunity to be aware of what's going on, to be aware of the teammates around me. the basket in front of me, the basket behind me, and all the other sounds and objects. It's a full concentration and understanding of the arena. In essence, I'm trying to feel the energy of the environment and allow it to move through me. That then propels me and fuels me to have a great performance. I've done that since I was a kid, sort of naturally. I never put too much thought into it. When Phil Jackson came, though, I started to understand the importance of my personalized meditative process. From then on, I placed an increased emphasis on it. There's this fantastic article that came out on The Athletic not too long ago, and the writer talks about, and I'm forgetting the writer's name, but I'll put it in the link of this podcast in the show notes. But the author was talking about how they tried meditating for at least 15 minutes a day, because that's what Kobe would do. First thing in the morning, meditate for at least 15 minutes a day. And this is a quote from Kobe that he said on Oprah. He said, "It sets me up for the rest of the day. It's like having an anchor. If I don't do it, I feel like I'm constantly chasing the day as opposed to being able to be controlled and dictate the day. I have a calmness about whatever comes my way and a poise." George Mumford came on my podcast. If you're unfamiliar with George Mumford, first and foremost, go listen to the podcast episode. George is great. He is an absolute legend. Then I recommend you go and buy his books if you're interested in meditation, in mindfulness. But I should have probably explained. So George Mumford worked with the Chicago Bulls, famously Phil Jackson, MJ, Scottie Pippen, the entire team. He then went on to work. He followed Phil to LA. He worked with Kobe, with Shaq. And he said something during our interview that stuck out to me. He said, Kobe was my best meditation student. And he said, Kobe would always look at things with this innate curiosity. That's how he approached meditation. When George first started working with him, he said how Kobe would ask all these questions, again, tying back to the whole curiosity thing, risking embarrassment now versus, risking it later with 0 titles. How Kobe would always come with questions, and he would always, George had this one line, I think it's from a philosopher, but he said, a glass half full, a glass half empty can receive everything. I'm probably butchering this quote, but a glass full can receive nothing, something along those lines. Basically saying how, hey, if you have an open mind, if you're open to new experiences, if you're opening to trying new things, you can learn a ton. But if you just think you know everything, if you're closed off to learning, then you're not going to learn a whole ton. So again, it all ties back to Kobe being innately curious and being and willing to put himself in these new situations, like tap dancing, like learning tap dancing, and then like learning meditation. And George Mumford was a big part of that, obviously. One of my favorite parts of the book is Kobe talking about the Mamba mentality. And the reason I love it is because he's obviously talking about it in his own words and describing what the Mamba mentality means to him. Kobe said, initially, I thought the phrase Mamba mentality was just a catchy hashtag that I'd start on Twitter, something witty and memorable. But it took off from there and came to symbolize much more. The mindset isn't about seeking a result. It's more about the process of getting to that result. It's about the journey and the approach. It's a way of life. I do think that's important in all endeavors to have that mentality. The part that sticks out to me is Kobe talking about it's all about the journey and the approach. Luke McCown came on my podcast. If you guys don't remember Luke McCown, he was a quarterback in the NFL, played for the Saints, played for a bunch of different teams, played mostly backup quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of people would look at Luke's career and say that it was a failure. A lot of people would classify it as a failure. Like, hey, you were a career backup. You never got playing time as a starter. And Luke McCown talks about the story. So apparently I didn't know this, but whenever somebody retires from the NFL, you go through this like medical examination afterwards where they obviously examine your body, but then you also sit down with someone and they talk to you about your career, about, hard times, all of those things. And typically they, that person will ask the NFL player like, hey, what did you think of your career? Like blah, blah, blah. And the person interviewing Luke that day said, hey, like, do you consider your career a failure? And Luke McCown said, no, not at all. Like, I actually think I had a super successful career. And Luke said that interviewer was kind of taken aback because normally when she asks NFL players, especially ones that maybe didn't reach, the heights that they wanted to or didn't fulfill their quote unquote potential, that they, typically have regret and they think, well, my career, I wish I did this. I would die, regret, to put it simply. Luke then had this quote. Listen to this. Luke McCown said, I was dealt some unfortunate blows, suffered 3 season-ending injuries right on the cusp of becoming a starter. Like, those are out of my control. I can't do anything about those. But I put my head down, and as risky as it was to go back on a second ACL injury and play again, knowing that there's a higher likelihood that it happens again, and I overcame that worry, and I didn't go out fearing that I was going to do it again. I went out and I just played, or in my case, practiced most of the time. And so you never really understand the fulfillment that you get just from the attempt. Just from the attempt. Man, I'm glad I did that. You know what? I can rest. I'm not depressed. I'm not bitter about how my career went. I'm very much at peace with how it went because I went through a lot and I attempted it. There were several times where I could have hung it up. I've got a nice little nest egg. I don't want to go through injuries again and all this different stuff. No, I wanted to keep going because the fear or the worry of getting injured again or more letdowns or more disappointments be the thing that drove my ship. No, it was going to be my confidence and my belief that I could still get it done. I can still play at a high level. I still have goals that I want to achieve. And again, ultimately, I leave it in the hands of my Lord and say, these are the goals I have. This is a talent you've given me. This is the place you put me in. I'm going to give it all I got, and I'll leave the results up to you. You just never know the gratification that you get from just the attempt. My dad always says there's no harm in trying. There's no harm in trying. You can only learn. What Luke is talking about here in this entire quote is the Mamba mentality. That's what Kobe just said. That's what Mamba mentality is to him. The mindset isn't about seeking a result. It's more about the process of getting to the result. It's about the journey and the approach. And that's what Luke talks about here. He was satisfied with the attempt, with the journey, with all the things that he learned along the way. There is no harm in trying. He gave it his best shot, and he can sit now at home, peace of mind, knowing that he gave it his all. He did the best that he could. Did he end up like Drew Brees? Did he have a career like Drew Brees? No, but he's satisfied with the career that he did have and the gratification that he got from just attempting the thing. And that's what Kobe talks about, is removing yourself from the result, right? Like, ignore the result, focus on the attempt, focus on the things that you can control. That's why I just love that quote from Kobe, because it just brings up, in his words, what Mamba mentality means. Speaking of Mamba mentality, Kobe obviously had a knack for hitting clutch shots. I think we all know that. He loved performing in the clutch. But this is his perspective on hitting clutch shots and taking those big shots in those big moments. People make a huge deal out of clutch shots. Thing is, it's just one shot. If you make 1,000 shots a day, it's just one of 1,000. Once you're hitting that many, what's one more? That was my mentality from day one. And there's a picture in the book. I'll try to show it. I don't know if it's going to come up on the camera, but Kobe hitting a big shot over the Pistons, Rip Hamilton. I think that might have been the finals. Could be completely wrong about that. It is the finals. There's the finals logo. Duh. But I love that perspective from Kobe. He didn't view it as this like big scary thing. He was like, oh, it's just another shot. Like, I'm just doing what I typically do 1,000 times a day, just taking another shot. And then Kobe talks about, funny enough, the title of this is God Gave Us Two Hands. And he talks about how as a kid, and this is his quote, I'm talking 6 years old, it bothered me when something felt like a weakness. So I worked really hard on my left hand at that age. Specifically, I would brush my teeth with my left hand. I would write my name with my left hand. I hated the feeling of being uncomfortable. And then one of my favorite stories in the entire book is a story between Kobe and Ruben Patterson. And this just, again, you see a lot of, I think by this point in the podcast episode, you see a pattern with Kobe Bryant and just how maniacal he was in the best way possible, and how competitive he was, how he lived out the Mamba mentality, and mostly everything that he did. I think this story just pieces it all together beautifully. Listen to this. Ruben Patterson and I played together for a bit, so I got to know what he could and couldn't do. And he could play defense, but I have to laugh at the whole Kobe stopper thing he started. I actually think he tried using it as a ploy to get a bigger contract in free agency. The idea was solid, the execution was flawed. Not too long ago, I told him, you should have called me before you went ahead and said it. You should have said, Kobe, I need a favor. I need you to help me get this money. I would have done that for Ruben. I would have been happy to help him. After he went ahead and did it on his own, though, I had no choice but to light him up every time I saw him. No choice. I prided myself on playing any so-called Kobe stopper, any specialist brought in by a team to try to slow me down. When we were a championship caliber team, other GMs were constructing their rosters to dethrone us. One of the methods they attempted was employing a Kobe stopper, someone paid strictly to stop me. When teams did that, it was my job to make them question their ability to spot talent in the first place. When teams did that, it was my job to make them question their ability to spot talent in the first place. I mean, again, Kobe, man, what else to say? Like he was so insulted by this idea of a Kobe stopper, the thought that there was a guy on another team that could stop him, that was paid, that was brought in specifically by that team to try and defend Kobe Bryant, to try and slow him down. And he took that personally. When teams did that, it was my job to make them question their ability to spot talent in the first place. Amazing. The second to last quote that I'm going to leave you with here today is Kobe talking about winning. Kobe said, "Winning championships is everything. It's really one of the greatest joys on this planet. That feeling drove me to always want more. When I won one ring, I wanted two. When I won two, I wanted three. I think that drive stemmed from being part of a rebuilding process after struggling for a few years and working to reach that pinnacle. Once I reached it, I wanted to achieve more. I never wanted to experience the still familiar feeling of defeat again." Kobe then goes to talk about in a separate quote. He says, "The agony of defeat is as low as the joy of winning is high. However, they're the exact same to me. I'm at the gym at the same time after losing 50 games as I am after winning a championship. It doesn't change for me." And that's the beautiful part about Kobe, man, is he viewed defeat and winning in the same way. As he said, the agony of defeat is as low as the joy of winning is high. However, they're the exact same to me. I'm at the gym at the same time after losing 50 games as I am after winning a championship. You know, the quote from Phil Jackson earlier about being at the dinner, or sorry, it was from Paul Gasol, about being at the dinner and then Kobe leaving to go work out after the dinner, and Paul Gasol being like, "Yo, this guy, I thought I knew him, but he's just taking this to a whole nother level." That's the thing with Kobe. He just didn't care. He had a process, he had a system, and he was going to follow it religiously. And that's just who Kobe was. And again, tied back to Mamba mentality, not caring about the results, caring about the inputs, controlling the controllables, right? Like he knew his effort, his willingness to practice, to get in that gym was something that he could control, and he focused on that. Results were secondary. He realized that results would come if he put in the requisite amount of work and practiced to the best of his ability. He knew that the results would come, but his practice, his hard work, his dedication was not tied to the results. It's not like, "Oh, great, we won our fourth championship, or I won my fifth championship. I can relax a little bit now." Nope, right back into the gym. There's this other quote from Kobe Bryant. This isn't from the book, but he was being interviewed at an event. I forget exactly which one, but the interviewer asked Kobe, like, what are your thoughts on doubt? Like, how do you get past? A lot of people struggle with self doubt and getting past that, and a lot of people don't even try to do the thing because they're so scared, and they're scared of their own failure, and they just have this self doubt, thinking that they're not good enough. And Kobe said, "There are times when you are going to succeed and times when you're going to fail. So wasting your time doubting whether you'll be successful or not is pointless. You put one foot in front of the other, control what you can control, and then see what the outcome is." Again, like, as I'm talking about Kobe and as I'm going through these quotes and his mindset, like in my own head, I'm starting to realize how it all kind of comes together. How the Mamba mentality quote that I read to you a little bit earlier about being process driven, how it ties in with everything that Kobe did. Like this quote, again, talking about doubt. He was like, "You put one foot in front of the other, control what you can control, and then see what the outcome is." And he said, as he said, he's like, "Doubting whether or not you'll be successful is pointless. Control what you can control, put in the effort, focus on the inputs, and then the result is going to be what it's going to be. And then don't let the result influence your future effort. Focus on the process, focus on the system, and then let the results fall as they may." To end this podcast episode, I'm going to leave you with my favorite Kobe Bryant quote of all time. Kobe said, the biggest mistake we have in life is thinking we have more time. And I love that quote because it gets at the principle that we don't have as much time as we think. Everyone assumes that living to 80 to 85 is guaranteed. It is not. It is not guaranteed. Time is not guaranteed. Living to 85 years old would be great, would be a blessing. That is in no way, shape, or form guaranteed. So if you're going to go out and do something, you better do it now. You better do it now, and don't assume that you can do it at some point in the future, because that future may not exist. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this podcast episode on Kobe Bean Bryant, the mindset behind Mamba Mentality. Kobe Bryant, in his own words, like I said, trying out something new for the pod. Let me know if you liked it. Leave a comment, leave a like if you enjoyed this type of podcast episode. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm super active over there. Tell me what you think of this podcast. And then if you're not subscribed on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. It's completely free. It helps me out a ton. Helps me get, book bigger and better guests for the pod. And then, I really enjoy reading these biographies of these athletes. I read them anyhow. If you enjoyed me sharing some of my favorite parts from these athletes, some favorite parts from the books that I read, then I will make this a consistent every week type of thing. Typically, I put out one interview a week. If people like this podcast style, then I will add that to the weekly routine. So you'll get one interview with an athlete per week, and then you'll get one of these type of podcast episodes where I share what really stood out to me from these biographies of athletes, autobiographies, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoy that and hope you have a great day.